Oh, hi. Welcome, YouTube fam. So, I got a little hit around the AI bubble, the incessant information overload, and our shifting consciousness on this planet. Certainly on the physical plane, increasing intensities, volatility, um, darkness being revealed, and the collective opening up and continuing to endeavor the collective shadow, right? So, like ancestral pain, trauma, all of the unresolved, deeper, darker emotions within us, right? To access more of that quantum field, to understand our nervous systems as a biological intelligence, right? So, the AI bubble and like the sort of the epitome or the kind of um I'm thinking of like the top of the mountain of our evolutionary leaping as a species, and how AI and technology and a lot of the kind of capitalism and such things are kind of driving us towards this insane desire for progress in as far as growth and or capital, but it's based on extraction. It's often, well, yes, based in violence, oppression, using force and extracting resources. And so like the AI bubble is very much this sort of like a parasitic extraction of our data, extraction of our divine intelligence, to then sort of sell it back to us. And then not to mention the environmental impact that building these data centers to kind of hold that AI technology is a huge drain on our, from what I can gather, is certainly the water. And I then think of like the plasma field and how we're all connected in this infinitely intelligent biological system, and why you can think of it just as a artificial intelligence that's expanding without certain collectively agreed parameters. And so I think of like 2008 and kind of like these different um false systems that have like grown to the point of like bursting, right? And I'm not an economist. I don't really like, I'm not speaking at that level. It's more of a spiritual perspective of, of energetic kind of exchanges and unfolding and awarenesses. So the AI bubble is kind of growing, getting bigger, and then it bursts, and how that triggers a further awakening and or a further kind of deepening of our connection to the planet. And again, why our connection to Earth, her cycles, her offerings, and then our like why that's so important to the biological system, our well-being as a species on the planet, and then return to that nature, and how things like astrology, esoteric wisdom, the stars, the planets, and our connection to them helps to inform our greater technology as we return to nature. Um, Let me know if you guys resonate with any of that, or if you agree. Recently, I mentioned like for the first time ever using ChatGPT, and I get it. Like, I can see why people want to use that, but there is a kind of mm, somehow like a spiritual bypassing or an avoidance, I think, by leaning too heavily on these technologies without knowing self, and without kind of being in your own divine autonomy and being in your own sacred connection. But then part of why I do all the things I do with the brand are really like, if things aren't energetically, as in if things are not sustainable for the earth's resources and her people, it's not like, it's not true. It's not like real. It's not. And that I just sent a shout out, like a newsletter to my subscribers, and just talking about how radical these times are as far as like a global paradigm shift, um, the kind of continuation of more people rising to stand against, like to stand in truth, but to stand against oppression and enslavement, and how we can see the polarizing backlash to all of that. I was in plenty of well-intentioned people using ChatGPT because it's cool and it's, seemingly informative. But what we're losing potentially is our ability to connect to self, connect to the planet, and then have authentic connection with one another. And I don't know about you guys, but increasingly in my online teaching and in my online world and in my online communities, I'm getting this increasing pull and call to reestablish like safe spaces and reestablish areas and places where we can come together and like process, heal, and like less talking, more feeling, um, and kind of quiet reflection and journaling. Because I do find that like in loops where that's part of my kind of discernment of staying out of groupthink is just like in our little kind of communities, like hence the rise of neurodivergency and stuff like this, because the small talk becomes really kind of tiresome when it becomes increasingly apparent to you that there's like some really deep-seated issues within us as a humanity, within our culture, within the systems of that culture. And whether you think of yourself as a light worker or a spiritual person or a sensitive person or any of that stuff, yes, like the more aware you become, the more kind of detached you are from the culture, and yet the more apparent it is that there's so many like insidious ways that we might avoid our shame, avoid our pain, um, and kind of go around these mental loops versus the really grounded, anchored people, for one, places, for two, that are anchoring in this paradigm shift work where you're truly delving into the depth of your shadow. And there's so many layers and nuance to it as well. And self-healers and people can do a lot of work on their own, and yet increasingly I'm aware that more and more people are gonna probably need or want or crave support, crave witnesses, that we can reflect to one another to the depth of the shadow work being transformed, like being seen for what it is. And again, it's all is one kind of thing. It's that sense of we are all divine sparks, every single one of us, and yet the more you see, you also start to interpret and or feel into the kind of multi-layered conditioning, wounding, ancestral stuff, karmic stuff, like, and again, it's all interwoven and connected in the web of life, right? So I'm going to leave it there. That sprung to mind, the AI bubble and a return to nature, and how this is sort of an unfolding evolutionary shift, bringing us into the golden age or into higher bass tones of our harmonic convergence with the planet. But yeah, just sharing a little bit of that, wondering how you guys resonate, and if any of you are also being called to like kind of connect more, congregate more, or find like minds in your local community, and or if you're being guided to start them and create them. And I'm really, yeah, and how you're feeling into that kind of fragmentation or fracture, perhaps in our own daily life, right? Where we have this awareness, but our kind of day-to-day mundane reality isn't reflecting that or isn't honoring that. And again, more and more people waking up and wanting to live in their integrity, wanting to live in their human biology. And that's I think a big part of it as well, is like just returning to our humanity versus living in hardcore survival and wounding, and reenacting all these like trauma cycles. I'm going to leave it there, you guys. Have a wonderful day, and feel free to subscribe and like and share. And join my Patreon community as well, or visit my website to check out the online courses, my book, and you're welcome to book a private reading or to inquire about working with me in a meditative kind of yoga way. Have a great day, you guys. Take care. Peace out.